do this with my laptop. Like many old people, I'm technically challenged, but I think it'll work. I hope it'll work. Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, I'm always grateful, I'm thankful that Annette and the board here are willing to let me share my thoughts and things, and this is great. They do it with others, and it's always interesting. I always love hearing people from our own congregation that come up and share their ideas, because you learn things about people, but when they take a deep dive into something or think about something, you get to hear that, and it's really interesting to hear people talk. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to do that. So I'm grateful for that. So let me start with this. What did you do? Some ideas. What did you do when you what's the first thing you do when you woke up today? Anybody? First thing you did when you woke up today? Coffee.
Gratitude.
Thought of gratitude? Drank coffee? Okay. I'm sure you were grateful for the coffee. What did you do when you first got up? Coffee. So far, 2 coffees, 3 coffees? Do I have 3? What did you have? Okay.
I thank God for the light of day.
Thank God for the day. Oh, you guys are so good. You're such good people. Well, anybody else? What else? Anybody?
I talked with my husband.
What's that?
I talked with my husband.
You talked with your husband.
Yes.
Very good. Good. Was it like friendly? Never mind. What? Let's get into that. Good morning. How many of you, before you did that, the first thing you did, how many of you looked at your clock first? Did anybody do that? Anybody? How many of you look at your clock first thing? Actually, the first thing you do is your clock, right? Because we're all, from the time we wake up till we go to bed, we're all on a time schedule, right? Today's church, so when you looked it up and thought, I have to be, and you had to be where, somewhere, at what time, right? That was the thing, right? So we get up, I know I did it, I turn, if I'm not turning, I'm usually turning off the alarm, so the first thing I see is a clock, and it tells you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this much time to do this. So my talk is about time, and it's called Time in the Eternal Now. So it's just I sort of want to look at time in itself and what that is. We've heard like the present moment is the only time. In like spiritual and esoteric circles, we hear this all the time. The only moment is now, right? How many times have you heard that thing? Right now, the present moment is the moment of power. It's the only time we have. We can't really change the past. We can't predict the future. Well, some of us can. But in general, the idea that is everything is happening in the immediate now. So, and we look to that. We sort of look at it. So I wanted to sort of look at time and think, what would it be like? What is it really? How influential? What is it in our lives? How difficult is it to just think of the now? How hard is that really? How much do we do that? So it's sort of to take a look at that. And I was thinking about some interesting concepts around that. There are a lot of movies that talk about the concept of time. They talk about time travel and things like this. That paradox that if somebody goes back in time, if their person was able to travel back in time, but if they, shot your grandfather, would you be here? Or if the person that traveled shot their grandfather, would they then be in existence? So it's kind of, there's a time scope, there's a paradox that would say one thing can't happen, or it would change something in time. And then, of course, that leads all towards like multi-universes and things and all this kind of thing where they try to come up with ideas how this could happen, how it could shift things. There's also talk about the thing like the butterfly effect, which is if you go back in time 1,000 to a million years, and you kill a butterfly, how would our life be different now? If you kill one butterfly, and what would happen? How would that change the prospect of how history progresses over, you know, thousands of years? So sort of look at that. You know, I think about other ideas. There's one of the movies, like Inception, is a movie that deals with like time within dreams, and it's dreams within dreams, and then it's like if you go back one more level of dreams, the time moves slower, or it moves faster back there, and it's slower here. So if you're slower here and you go back there, it's moving faster, and you can do something back there to get to this time, and so on like that. And in that whole process in that movie, the question is, which dream are you in? And are you back to the original reality or not? And what is that? So it's sort of really a mind bender in that way. Another one is one about trying to think of the title of it. Was the Tom Cruise movie? It's an action movie with aliens and things, but it's about reliving every day. Each day comes back again. An alien kills him, he goes back to where he was and starts, and he wakes up, and it's sort of like Groundhog Day. It keeps happening and happening again. So it's interesting, the movies that sort of look at time and look at those kind of issues. And then, of course, there's a whole slew of things, you know, if you get into the, go down the YouTube rabbit hole and things like that. There are stories about aliens are future, are us in the future, and time travelers, what are the interdimensional travel, how does that affect time? And then, of course, I said it's like multiverses, it's trying to think of all that. So there's a lot of mind-bending things that happen, but for us, we really are, you know, we really think of the time like this, so what bends our brain is that those ideas of what if that happened, it's very unusual because we just think of the continuum of the little timeline, and it's hard to think outside of that because it's where we live all of the time. In our practical, non-movie world, we all live by the clock. Although time we know is steady, it does seem to fluctuate based on our experience. You know, sometimes time seems to go so slow, it just takes forever for something to pass. You know what I'm saying? Like when certain people are speaking up. No, I'm just kidding. Just teasing. But it can just take forever. Well, we've been in those spots as, man, this is going on forever. It seems longer than it actually is. And then, of course, there are other times when it flies by so fast. You know, it's like, oh, wow, that time just went really, really quickly. So there is fluctuation in how we experience time. Even though we constantly think of it on a timeline, there's still that fluctuation. So, you know, there are other circumstances when we feel like time is warped or suspended. When we sleep, time is like over in an instant. When you think about it, you go to sleep and then you're waking up. You may be asleep for hours, or if you're like me and my bladder, it's less hours and up more frequently. But it's still that the time that you're actually sleeping goes by just like that, and the next thing you know, you experience awakeness. So that's a time that's over in a second. When we dream, we usually dream sort of sequentially, but there isn't. It's hard to have a time scope within dream. The time is very fluid, and we experience things happening, and there's sort of but we don't experience necessarily as think of what is the length of time as events are happening, although they may be sequential. When we're in sort of a hypnotic state, either actively or passively, time seems to stop and slow down. When we're daydreaming, this happens too. Or we're intensely focusing on a task. Time slows down. Another example is road hypnosis. Like when you're driving on the road, and you know what I mean, that hypnosis thing. It's like, how long have I been driving? And if you're like me, and you're in that hypnosis, your car also goes to a different location than you were supposed to be. It actually happened to me on the way here. I was on the way here, and I was thinking about, you know how you think tensely, thinking about something, and I turned on the way that is my school pathway. I quickly turned around and said, oops, I'm not going there today. So I turned around, came up this way, and then I was in the wrong line, and that was just simple memory, because I remember I had to do this wraparound until that bridge is done, and I'm not sure when that will be. But I'll probably finally get used to the other way and start automatically going there when they fix the bridge. But the bridge way goes past the ice cream place. So I'm never going to not get used to that. I mean, as soon as that bridge is ready, it's an excuse, you know, stop at the snow cone place or whatever. So anyway, all of this is when you have like we hear from people like, I don't think you've experienced, but hopefully not. But if you've been like a car accident, many times people experience that as very slow motion. They'll describe it as in slow motion. Now, we know to us the thing is happening as fast as it happens, but it's as if in the heightened sense of what's going on, our mind processes faster what's going on. It like jumps into warp speed of processing, and then the time, so it feels like it's slow motion in what's actually happening. But I think it's just a process of our mind processing things faster in that process. So it's interesting how all of this goes. If we want to achieve a state of suspended time on purpose, the gold standard would be to meditate. How many of you meditate or have meditated or did meditate? And how many of you notice the time situation when you're meditating, and that is different than normal? It's like you know, oh, for me, I'm meditating, and I always think less time has passed than has actually passed. That seems to be sort of the way it works. So when we look at things, we do meditate. It's our best route to get to spiritual growth. And I think a byproduct of meditation involves being in a state where time seems to evaporate. So, and this is a little bit why I'm talking about time, because of how we think of it, and again, it's coming to this idea of living in the eternal now. Let's just think about a couple ideas, what are commonly held ideas about our dependence on time. We often hear from spiritual gurus that, that we are here to learn, and that our earthly life is a school. Learning is a function of time. We don't know something, then we learn it, and then we know it, and then it changes us, it causes us to evolve, hopefully in a good direction. But this learning and evolving occurs over time, which conflicts with the idea that we can only truly live in the eternal now. Even the two-word phrase, eternal now, is an oxymoron. Eternal is a time reference, basically, and now is now. So it's all relative as we look at it, and we're always thinking of the relationship of us to time. We're told everything we know is inside of us, and therefore it's an illusion to think that we need time to figure things out. So for those of you trying to live in an eternal now, that just misses the idea of growth and change, all these things, kind of like learning things and stuff. If we were in an eternal now space, it would all be already known, I guess, and then we wouldn't have to think of this process. Time, all the processes we have in terms of learning and thinking we're going to learn something and know something, all sustain and come around the idea of time. Near-death experiencers often describe going to a place where they know everything, like called the Akashic Records. So we often have that where people go to that, but when they return, then they forget what that is. So there's sort of a forgetting about that kind of a thing. Birth into this physical world contains an element of forgetting, which I guess is necessary to have the illusion of a finite life that has a beginning and an end. So I guess my question would be, are we really here to learn things or uncover or just to uncover and access what we already know inside ourselves? Which one of those things? And you'll hear both comments, where we live in a world with both of those ideas happening or being shared with us. Time has an interesting implication in illness and healing. For example, smoking. when people were smoking, people would smoke, and they would smoke, and over time, you know, remember when cigarettes out and they were promoted by, like, you know, doctors were promoting smoking and things. So people would smoke, and over time, they would get lung cancer and die. And that, so cigarettes kill people, but not immediately. They just do it over a long period of time. In that process, it took a long time, basically, but we don't really punish the cigarette makers because they killed us over a long period of time, if you think about it. However, if somebody shoots somebody with a gun, they die immediately, we punish that person. So, in a sense, that both people are doing the same thing. One person takes a lot longer to get to the end than another person. So it's sort of like a time thing. I remember one thing I was reading about, it was talking about God and the timelessness of God, and it was saying to God it's a very interesting thing. It was someone that was commenting when meeting God and talking with God. And they were saying that this very thing, it's very interesting because from God's perspective, this person, these people took a long time to kill that person, so it was not a problem. But this person did it immediately, so it was an issue. And to God, that would be like, it's an outcome from the same action either way. Some kind of action that causes somebody's death. So that's interesting how that sort of works. If a doctor gives medicine to a sick person and the person heals over a period of time, we consider that the product of science. If someone like Jesus heals a sick person in a split second of time, we call that miraculous. So, are they both miracles? Is it a miracle if it takes time? Our bodies heal themselves over some time. Is that, but we would call it miraculous. I often think in terms of, you know, we do healing things, I think about it in terms of healing. It's like, it's much more impressive if you can heal somebody, work on healing toward them with healing energy, and if they can immediately get up and walk or do something or whatever, then that immediacy is miraculous and amazing. However, if the healing energy and stuff is given to a person, but it takes some time for the person to heal, we don't really quite see the connection as much. So it's sort of like that's not phenomenal to us, although it can be just as real in terms of the healing. So that's it's just the nature of how time influences even how we think about things. We've heard that living in the present moment is a point of power because it's all we truly have. This is referenced in most religions, including Christianity, Buddhism, as well as in many spiritual and New Age writings. But what does that mean? And is it actually possible, in a practical sense, to live only in the present? Think about it. I've really thought about this. What does it entail to actually live in the present moment? So everything we see every day represents time. We see people aging, we see young people, old people, we see this process, trees, plants, pets, wild animals, they all age in front of our eyes. We look at our own bodies and they're aging. We see this process. Everything about the life we see tells us about time and aging. Even things like cars and things, when they get non-animate, it's obvious, still get old and rust and break down, and then they're old and we need to replace them. So we live in this constant thing, and we look at ourselves every day and see the process of our aging. So we never do not have the signs in our life of the process of time. Nothing lasts forever, and everything living dies eventually. These are phrases that all take the context of time. We live by our cell phones, our clocks, our calendars, and nothing can get done by a group or unless we all agree on a time in the future to get together. It's the only way we're meeting here is if we agreed on a time. So it was an essential part of it as we go together. And I think about that, it seems like a monumental or even insurmountable task to be able to escape the construct of time in our consciousness. Think how hard it would be to step aside from that, much less do it on a permanent basis. If that isn't bad enough, think about the paralyzing fear we would need to overcome if we had to allow ourselves to have no recollection of the past. In essence, welcoming amnesia. So we're not thinking about we don't have any thought about the past because we're in the present moment. Think about this. And then no matter how scary it would be to not know who we are, this would be the thing. If it is in the past, it's the past that sort of defines us, as you know. We would have to leave all of the past go, ours and everyone else's, to be fully conscious only in the present moment, I think. I don't know how to think of the past if I'm only thinking about the present moment. That'd be a little scary to not think about it, to not know anything in the past, to not even think about the things that let us know who we are ourselves. We could do this temporarily in meditation, but to stay in this state forever, is that a goal? I mean, wouldn't that be a little terrifying? I think it would be. So I think about, is it really, it's a good idea to say live in the eternal now, but would we really do it? Would that even be practical for us to do? I would be like, I would forget to eat lunch. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't forget to eat lunch. But even just the idea of you'd be like, I have to think about time to feed my body, whatever. I have to think about this. So I'm just trying to think of what is the real practicality of, for those who would say the closest way to God and eternal kind of nature is to be in the moment of today, that all the power is in the moment of today. It's true in some senses, but would we fully let go of our concept of time? We would still know what now means, only in the context of everything else going around us. I like to meditate to an interesting guided meditation by Muji. He's a famous Jamaican Buddhist guru. You can find him on YouTube. This particular meditation starts with the phrase, "You were never born. Only this form was born." And of course it goes on to say, only this form dies, but our essence continues on. It is interesting to really meditate on the timelessness of ourselves. This conscious connection to timelessness is a direct connection to our God self. All religions define timelessness as a quality of God. If we reach a state of timelessness, we touch oneness with God. Infinite intelligence, as we often call God, uses the word infinite to imply this state of timelessness. But can we truly connect with our timeless essence? Think about it. Do you remember the first time you consciously thought, you had a conscious thought? Do you remember the first time you thought, this is me? Now we know we were born, we have pictures of that, there are pictures of us as babies, but when did we start thinking? Were we thinking then? My childhood I remember more from photos than actually memories. I think back to, can you think of what was your first real memory? It's hard to pinpoint what that is. I don't think it was the moment of being born. I have, no recollection of that, so I don't even know that. However, by pictures and other life, in terms of this world, I know that I was, but I don't remember when I started thinking and started recognizing myself. And so I don't. When I figured out what that was, I think about that as movement into the physical life and illusion. We move into the physical life. Is that an illusion? And in turn, is movement into the next life an illusion as well? I often think when we move into the next life, will we know we did? Will there be the same kind of a thing of like, hey, I'm in the next life, Well, I'm not sure. I know. I mean, we hear things about stories about, you know, spirit entities and things, and being trapped in a place and thinking they're still here and stuff like that. So it's sort of like maybe they didn't, you know, did they not feel they were going through? We even talk about, you know, sort of helping them really cross over things. So that kind of thing is sort of interesting to think. At the end, will we know? Will we be just disoriented and think what happened, or will we know that that's a big shift? We expect a big shift, but it could be as the same as when we were born. Like, I don't know when it just happened. Now I'm in the afterlife. I don't know when that happened or how it happened. I don't know. It's just sort of interesting to think about it. I think about, is there a real border between our pre-birth experience and our birth into this life? Is there really a border between life and the next? Is death an actual occurrence to our aware mind any more than birth was? If you can really think about this, you can approach the concept of your own timelessness. So the more we approach oneness with God through our meditative connection to timelessness, the more our life feels sort of dreamlike and ethereal. Perhaps the English children's rhyme that we know very well as a singing round says it best in its own simplistic way. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Very interesting to think about it as is it really dream? When we meditate, it gets to be sort of dreamlike. It's very interesting to think about that. So just my thoughts about what it would really take to be able to live in the now, and how important is it, and how much time do we spend there, and is it really feasible to be there totally there, living in the now, in our brains and thinking all the time. So thank you very much for letting me share my ideas.